Hi, I'm Robin C.M. Duncan, and I'm going to read to you from near the start of my second novel, The Carborundum Conundrum, featuring Quirk and Moth. Um, and yeah, just going to dive in. The last vestige of day had departed, and the sky was a clear midnight blue. The stars winked at Moth as she plodded with uneven steps down the snowy bank between looming, half-seen trees. The crescent moon gave her light to choose a path as she picked her way slowly through the woods towards the house. She took another awkward step, tugging her booted foot free of the creeping cold, only to sink it back in as she descended the 40-degree bank from the road above. She paused again, concerned about straining her reconstructed leg, even though it felt totally normal. She shivered. The self-warming gloves Quirk bought her in town were fine, but they didn't do her toes any good, or her nose. 9.81 meters per second squared of Earth gravity circumvented her better judgment and dragged her, arms windmilling down slope to the foot of the bank. She let herself stumble the last few meters and clutched the thick trunk of the last tree, a paper birch, she thought, from the way its bark crinkled under her gloves. Lines of black spectral fruit trees, outlined by the light from the house, stretched across level ground towards a timber slat fence. 33 meters away, that fence, according to Kodak Planet View, which whispered to her earbud in the voice of her handset, zipped up in a slightly illegal, scan-proof bag in her pocket. All because the target hated anyone else's technology so very much that he'd installed scanners all around his property. Asshole, thought Moth. Stealing other people's shit is not cool, but we're going to take you down. She puffed out her cheeks and refocused. All she could see of her path ahead through the orchard was the black barrier of the fence. But beyond it, she knew, was the pool, and then the back door. Lighted top-floor windows glowed gold in the darkness, beckoning her out of her wintry hell. Even from here, she could see a grey-haired man with a glass in his hand, talking to someone, presumably Quirk, over his shoulder. It started to snow again. This was no place for a good Milanese girl, a convent girl at that, who always said her prayers and brushed her teeth. Moth shivered again. All because Quirk's finely chiselled face bit the fucking story. He gets the easy end of the deal again. Oh no, Moth dear, I need to arrive in the car to look the part of the art dealer, and 80 needs to be my android chauffeur. I'm the only one who can play the part, Moth dear, and you're so young and athletic, you'll be able to vault over the concrete road barrier, scamper down the snow-covered bank, skip through the forested orchard, hop over the fence, tiptoe around the winterized pool, creep up the back stairs to the deck and record the conversation. I'll be scanned at the door, and 80 will have to stay in the car, drive away in fact, because alleged art thief Grainer is very suspicious and trusts no technology but his own. Another case where she ended up doing the donkey work, and Quirk would glad hand the client and make some offhand remark about her invaluable assistance. Assistance? She started forward slowly, pushing off the paper birch. A low branch raked her arm, somehow finding the gap between glove and parka sleeve. Moth hissed as the jutting twig tore her skin. She stopped in her tracks, sucking chill air. Her breath caught in her throat, then came out in a puff that she failed to conceal, was blown back onto her face to freeze there. Her arms stung. She pulled her woolen scarf up to cover her nose. Hot, damp breath was trapped against her face. She hated Canada, bloody hellhole. Even the moon was warmer. She looked up at the glowing crescent as she tramped across the open strip of glistening fairy dust snow to the first apple tree. She struggled to believe that she'd been there 6 weeks ago, struggled to process her feelings about the dozens of deaths caused by Gregor Callan, engineer of the Lunaville dome disaster. She stopped as her breath caught again, this time from a surge of unwanted emotion. She brought a big Snow-Tex glove to her mouth, stifling a grunt. She still had nightmares about being trapped in the collapsed Androcon building, smothered in rubble and bodies as the air leaked away. She'd been sure everyone was dead, including Quirk out there on the lunar surface, or in the building where his body was. It was hard to admit that she'd prayed for him to live, despite her uncle conning Quirk into becoming her guardian. And now her guardian and employer was comfy in the splendid surroundings of Louis Grainer's plush Kootenai Valley super-rich retreat, while she was stuck doing the legwork, and with a rebuilt leg. After 3 more deep breaths, she started forward through the dormant orchard. She made it a whole 10 meters before stopping again. There was something moving. There, beyond the trees, a low shape, a dark grey smudge against the brown darkness of the fence. She shuddered, like someone had tickled her grave with a feather. There was a gentle sighing behind her. It sounded for all the world like breathing. Slowly, Moth looked over her shoulder, back through the first few spindly trees, which were not closing in and reaching towards her. They weren't. There were 3 more low, pacing shapes behind her. Oh, shit. The lovely but nosy lady in the Canyon Street outdoor store where they'd bought Moth's parka had said something about wolves. Have a great day. Don't go up in the mountains at night, eh? Yet this was wrong. She recalled Natural Science Module 12, Lecture 7, Homo sapiens as lunch, which was very clear that wolves did not behave this way. And yet the shapes moved with that slinky lupine grace, their silhouettes appearing soft as with fur, pointed ears pronounced against the moonlit snow. So, were they some kind of genetic hybrid? Big dogs with brain boxes? She wished she had a knife, or even a stick. Maybe a 6-sword P777J semi-automatic pistol with a 15-degree grip. But she didn't. She only had stupid NEMP tech. Neuro-electromagnetic pulse. Zapping Android operating systems since 2043. Strictly law enforcement issue only. Strictly not for the use of Milanese convent girls, and fuck all use against flesh and blood. She really hoped they were androids. Programmed to scare. She started backing towards the fence, because 1 behind her was better than 3, right? She darted a glance over her shoulder to see a second grey dark shape skirting the fence. Great. But 2's better than 3, it is. The low shapes encircled her and began a threatening chorus of deep growls. Moth fumbled for her pockets. Shouting for Quirk would be useless. He'd never get down here, even if he was inclined to break cover. Maybe her faithful android siren S0778A, 80 for short, would come crashing in and unleash the full fury of the laws of robotics any second now. Like now. Maybe now? Nope. She edged toward the fence again. The growling became louder. Moth's heart hammered in her chest, and her breath came in quick puffs of alarm-visible white. But it hardly mattered now. She was more worried about being savaged by a cyborg lupine killer, because an android couldn't. The laws prevented it. So either these were dumb walking man-traps, prowling animals angered by her incursion, or scary but impotent android warning signs. Time to find out. She had maybe 10 metres to spare, front and back. 5 pairs of eyes glowed in the dark. One of the wolf things snapped its jaws. Moth's smart lenses fed infrared data to her sea life, which whispered that the fence was 200 centimetres high, and she was 160 centimetres in her boots, with a 31 centimetre reach. She'd have to jump. No surprise there then. She turned and ran at the fence. The pair of wolf things ahead growled and crouched, teeth flashing in the moonlight. Her snowbound steps were slow. A chorus of angry barks erupted all around her, shredding the night's silence. Moonlight picked out the teeth in front and those glowing eyes. Glowing? Flashing? Not meat, droids. She dropped into a baseball slide. The beast sprang forward. She flung off her $479.99 super gloves and pulled her hood up hard, tucking into a crinkly Snowtex ball. Ripping Velcro, she grabbed at her inside pocket. She found the nymph and jammed her thumb down on the big red button, then shuddered against the expectation of jagged teeth ripping at her, even though they couldn't, shouldn't. Powerful, urgent snouts seeking weak spots. Hot breath steamed inside her synthetic cocoon, but it was hers. There was no attack. The barking had stopped. The only sensation was the chill seeping into her limbs. She risked raising her head. Through a crack between the snow and the furry edge of her hood, she saw 2 grey-dark mounds lying in the snow beneath the canopy of gnarled branches. A third shape remained standing, but its eyes were dark, inert, deactivated. She squirmed around towards the fence, making a panicked snow angel, and saw another prone wolf shape almost within snapping reach of her, also still and silent. The final wolf stood statuesque by the fence. Moth gasped as she uncurled, sitting up in the snow, a broad smile plastered across her face. Eat nymph, android mofos. She struggled up, kicking the nearest wolf thing, then walked to the fence. Her handset's velvet tones whispered in her ear. Message from 80, alarm system deactivated. With a grin, Moth stepped on the standing wolf's back, pulled herself over the fence, and dropped down into the snow-blanketed pool area. I hope you enjoyed that. That was a reading from the Carborundum Conundrum, Book 2 of the Quirk and Moth series. I've been Robin C.M. Duncan, and you will find further details on my website. Thanks for listening. Bye. Thank you for watching this reading. Find more Indie Author Reading Library readings on our YouTube channel, along with our Meet the Author interviews and recordings of previous panels. Find us at glasgow2024.org and as Glasgow in 2024 on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Check out our cool merch at redbubble.com/people/Glasgow2024/shop. And consider joining in by emailing volunteers@glasgow2024.org.